don't worry, I have been reading the comments. So today we're going to be making a brand new tier list, ranking every meta unit in Anime Last Stand as of the Godly Fire Force update. Do keep in mind these rankings are just my opinion, but I still hope you enjoy the video. If you do, maybe leave a like or subscribe. But anyways, let's get into it. So for this tier list, we are of course going to be using the same rankings as always. We have Meta Overall, Meta Infinite, Meta Early, Support, Decent, and Farms. Now starting off with Benimaru, this guy has some crazy DPS, definitely could be Meta Overall if you're going for progressive modes only. But because he doesn't have much infinite value, I would say probably going in Meta Early. He's a very good starting unit. Joker, this guy, he's okay. He has a gimmick of applying all the different types of burn. I would say he's decent though, because his damage just isn't too crazy. Sho, this unit is not very good. He performs better when you have a bunch of burning enemies in his range, but even then he's just a line AoE. Ogon, this guy is garbage. He's supposed to be like a Shinigami unit where he benefits from multiple placements, but his DPS is not very good anyway. Hibana, somehow worse, I don't know. Her DPS is okay, but even Ogon's is more consistent because hers depends on the enemies in her range. Arthur, this guy is actually really good. He has a lot of range, he's full AoE, and he does have Shock and Blue Flame, which are going to buff two of the strongest dots in the game right now, Burn, and of course, he has Plasma and Blue Flame. He's going to buff Shock and Burn. Moving into the different forms of Shinra, this guy is pretty complicated, so I recommend watching my showcase video if you don't know what he does. But the Fire form, going to be doing a lot of damage, going to be a buffer for burn teams as well. Very, very solid, I'd say he's meta overall, and probably above Arthur for now. The Nature form, this one is going to have a chance to insta-kill after 5 attacks, so kind of like a better version of the support mode of Kurumi. I'll move her over here too. They both just kind of have a chance to kill stuff after attacking a bunch, and very good for infinite runs. Water form of Shinra, this guy is going to have a full AoE Blizzard, tons of damage, he's going to buff other water units. Might be an unpopular opinion, but I do think this guy is very, very crazy because Blizzard in this game is so good for stalling, and he has it full AoE and off rip and very strong damage. His Dark form isn't really here for his personal damage, he's mostly going to be here for his ability, which is going to debuff the enemies and also take away some of their HP. I'd say he's mostly a support. The Light form is kind of like a Shock version of the Fire form. Instead of Burn, he's going to be Shock, and I do think he's pretty good. And then the Neutral form, I'd say this is probably another infinite unit. He has a Rewind and Ability Reset ability, which is really good. Other than that, kind of useless, so infinite only pretty much. The Boosted form of Zamasu, this guy is another infinite unit. He can infinitely scale up his damage from his passive, but not too good. Berserk form of Shiro, this guy's going in decent. His DPS can be okay, but that's pretty much all he has. He does have an ability that blocks the base, but you never really need to use that in any game mode. The Knife form, I'd say, is better. It's a pretty good boss killer. The Sword form, I'd also say, is pretty good right here. Overall, pretty good for his random passive as like a support-ish, kind of, and also just pretty good damage. Kirito, definitely going in meta overall, very strong, especially against dark enemies. He does like 10 times his damage or something like that, really crazy. Probably going right under Arthur. Lifa is a good support. She's going to reduce the SPA of units in range and buff nature teams by a lot. Unohana, also a pretty good support. She's going to buff bleed and reduce enemy movement speed. Darksaber, I do think I've ranked her pretty low in the past. After her Divine Boost, she's very, very good because she has a repeatable 250 billion nuke. So I'd say probably meta infinite at least if you want to, like, not for leaderboard runs, but spamming 250 bill can get you pretty high waves. Baro, a damage stealing unit, not very good. I don't know. I'd say probably like here-ish maybe. Isagi, I think this is Isagi, right? This guy is very strong actually. He's going to have a buff for your team and do pretty solid personal damage, so meta overall. Shido, kind of mid. He's going to increase his own range if I remember correctly with a lot of his passives, and his damage kind of mid. Going in decent and probably right here. Ichigo, this is a meta early unit I think. Meta early for sure. Very good placement damage, but other than that, not too crazy. Itachi is going in decent. Right now he is bugged, so his Black Flame does not have perfect SPA. But if it did work, he'd be pretty good for DPS. Otherwise, I'd say he's decent and probably right about here for now. Kaiser's pretty okay, like a better version of Shido, I think, because they both kind of increase their own range, but water unit. Nagi is a pretty good starter, I think. Pretty good light starter. Definitely meta early for sure. His placement damage is very high, especially with his passive. Baldi form of Garo is going to be like a worse version of the actual Baldi, so good for infinites, but not too crazy. And probably Going under here, right here. Sukuna, also an infinite unit. He does have very strong nukes, but that's pretty much it. He can be good for tournaments as well. Very RNG though, so I'll put him in infinite for now. Sai, Meta, or Say, I don't know how to say his name. I don't know how to say his name. Meta early. He is perfect steel, does pretty okay damage. Icarus is a cheap full AoE bleed unit after his divine boost. It is pretty alright for DPS, but that's all he has. Gon, infinite unit, same thing as the Masu here. Infinitely scaling damage, but not very high. Well, it gets high, but only to a certain point. Like, there's a certain point where damage of a unit doesn't really matter, so for infinites, they're not too crazy anyway. You just want to bring nukes instead. Wukong, pretty good overall. Very good team lead for tournaments and very solid personal damage as well. I'd say probably between the light and fire form of Shinra. Rin is going in decent tier. He's alright, probably the best out of the Ulok people down here for his personal damage, but pretty much he's going to do more damage if you have less units in his range, I think. So, Quincy King, very good support. He's going to have a better version of Fear, full AoE, and also a buff to his teammates. Pretty good. Buffing form of Kurumi, I do think this is probably the best buffer. Oh wait, there we go. The best buffer in the game. She's going to have a very strong damage buff and crit buff to units in her range. Cosmic form of Garo, I still think this is the strongest unit in the game. He's good for everything. I have a whole video breaking him down, but pretty much best godly lead, so best buffer with that godly lead. Best damage nuke thing if you like max him out, then use Poochie to turn him into Baldi mode. Very good for everything, very good. Escanor I do think is kind of falling off. He can be good on burn teams though, and overall does still do really good damage. They're just better godlies. Kurumi, DPS form is pretty good if you max out her passives, and does of course have her time stop, so put her probably right here. Boros is kind of mid, he does have plasma, but his personal damage is really bad. Probably right here. Sun Jinwoo, in my opinion, one of the best progressive units, maybe even the best because of all his passives and damage. Probably right here. His lead is not too crazy though. Goku lead is pretty good, and then his damage is also really good, and overall, meta overall, for sure, very good, very good. Dio, very strong support. I think this is a very underrated unit, probably going right here. He has an SPA reduction, he has a time stop with pretty high uptime on it, very, very strong. Ragna, I do think I kind of overrated this guy before. Starts off as a ground line AoE for Frostbite, I think. Pretty okay, but better options. Luffy, alright. After his nerf to his nuke, he's not as good in infinites anymore, but still very good, especially as a godly lead for progressive. Baldi, meta infinite unit for sure. His executing nuke is very strong for later waves. Osoi is going in decent and probably pretty low down there. He's getting old. Same thing for Kenpachi, also getting pretty old. I think Genos is still a very good unit, especially when you pair him with Saitama. He's mostly an early game unit because he's very cheap and does pretty good damage, but his range is really bad on placement. I put him in meta early and probably right here. Akano, or Lightning Queen, fully a reconquered unit, but not very good. I'd say probably right around here. Yuta did get nerfed not too long ago, and his damage is pretty much all he has. He doesn't have anything else other than damage, really. Probably going right here. Garo, the monster form, pretty good starter unit, but I wouldn't say meta early anymore. There are definitely a lot of higher damage units nowadays, so probably put him right under Boros-ish, maybe. Albedo is a support unit. She is going to buff other units in her range and take away her own damage. I'd say probably right here for now in support. Green Esper, definitely meta early for sure. Very strong unit, very strong slow. Pretty good for everything honestly, but mostly an early game unit. She doesn't really have too much value in infinites anymore. I think this girl's name is Thorn Queen? Her damage is pretty good. She is a ground only unit though. DPS isn't very meta anymore anyway, so probably going here. Shion got nerfed for no reason, but she's even worse than she was before. If she made the cut on this list, she's like pretty bad. She's going pretty bottom of the tier list, but maybe right about here. Kabuki, very good, meta early unit, meta infinite unit as well, because she has fully re-blizzard. Meta overall, honestly, and going probably right here. Mitsuri, decent unit, can be fully re-hemorrhage, her damage is okay, probably going right about here. Ryuk, meta infinite for sure, he can insta-kill stuff, chance to insta-kill stuff. Usopp, decent unit, pretty good, not meta anymore because his 100% crit doesn't really matter with a Garo lead meta, but I'll put him right about here-ish for now. Roger's going in decent tier. They did patch his spamable non-global cooldown nuke, so he's not too strong anymore. I would put him right about here. Subaru, very good support. I'd put him probably right behind Dark Shinra form. Rias is okay for full AoE Conquered, very similar to Lightning Queen in that regard, and probably right here-ish, here, maybe. Aizen definitely meta overall, very strong support unit and very strong damage unit, very strong everything unit, going probably right about here, very good. Yoruichi, I know a lot of people still think she holds on to the meta because Shock is a very good thing to have, or Bolt, whatever she has. I'd still say she's going a decent tier and probably right about here. Chahayan kind of getting outdated, great unit, good for early light maybe if you don't have Gremmy or Nagi. Speaking of Gremmy, let's move him over. Gremmy definitely a meta early unit for sure, probably going like right here-ish maybe? Lenji or Sanji. This guy's kind of getting outdated in the damage department, not like too bad, he could still be pretty good, probably like right, I don't know, this guy maybe here? But overall I'd say he's mostly useful for his full AoE Blue Flame, so going here. Zoro, pretty good for his damage, but that's all he has, and I'd put him probably right here. Antares, after the Divine Boost, he's actually not that bad. I would say he's a pretty solid support, and his personal damage isn't too bad either. Kaido, Jack of all trades, he's got a lot going for him, definitely going in meta overall, but he is kind of falling off after they patched his spam replaceable passive. Guts is still very strong after they patched his bug, where his like damage gaining thing was supposed to be for one attack and it was permanent, now it's just actually for one attack. He works as intended now, and he's still pretty good as a support for like stunning the units in his range. He can be very good for his personal damage as well. I'd say meta overall. Giorno definitely meta overall. He has really everything going for him. Percent base damage, he's got slowdown and everything, early game damage. Probably going above Fire Shinra. Gohan I would say meta overall, and especially good after this latest update because he is immune to stun. Very, very good for the Volcano dungeon. Gambietta, definitely an early game meta unit, probably going right about here. Very good for fire. Ainz is okay for his nuke and high damage, so I'd put him right here in decent, kind of falling out of meta, but good for his full AoE damage as well. Naruto is a support, I'd put him probably right here-ish, he buffs damage and range. Irwin also buffs damage, and very, very good support right there. Law is going in support and pretty low, he's not very good. There are better rewind options nowadays, and Toto is pretty much the same unit, so we'll put him in the same tier pretty much. Bogata, or Gogeta, infinite unit, he has a nuke. I'd say he goes right about here. I think it does like 60% to bosses, 60% to the strongest enemy on the map, something like that. Going right here. And then Senjumaru, Needle Queen, she's going in decent, I'd put her probably right here. She's a perfect seal unit, good for progressive. Farms, let me get the farms out of the way. Idol, definitely the best, and then Robin and Yojin are interchangeable depending on what game mode you're doing. Robin's better for infinite type stuff with higher wave count. Yojin's better for progressive. Idol's the best overall, she makes the most cost efficient money and also has an ability that's going to buff units in her range. Fear, better version of Fear. He's going right here in support. Madara, definitely an infinite unit. He does have a pretty good rewind even after they nerfed him. Still very good for infinite meta. Julius is a support, probably going right about here. He has a full AoE, stun, and time stop. Yurei is a meta early unit for sure, meta early, going in here. Gojo, probably right about here, very solid meta overall unit. He's got high damage, he's got good abilities, everything like that. Goku Black is going under Senjumaru, probably. He has perfect seal, but not too crazy. Rimuru, probably meta overall. After the rework to him, he is very good for every game mode, honestly. His nuke might be bugged still, his nuke doesn't do like the full damage it should, but still very solid. And then Poochie, meta support unit I think, support for resetting abilities, rewinding enemies, and full AoE pressure. And then Gilgamesh is an infinite unit, he does have a pretty solid executing nuke, I think under 30% or something like that, 30 or 20% execute nuke, pretty good for infinite. And then finally we have Zamasu, the unboosted form, which is actually better than the boosted form in infinite runs because it does percent base damage. And here we go, I think this is the final ranking. Anyways, these are the final rankings. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, this is just my opinion, so please do be respectful about it. And at the end of the day, there are probably some things I overlooked and should change, so I am open to hearing what you guys think. Anyways, thank you to my channel members for making this video possible, you guys are the best. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, hope to see you in the next one, and have a great day.